It's about 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm here kind of in the southern half of this area for the cattle. And you can see here the grass, like in the last section, is quite thick. There's this weed that was taller than the wire. I call it a weed because it's not grass. That's what I mean is not grass. There's a not grass that's taller than the wire. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but the wire ran right through here, and you can see on the left the cows ate at it, and on the right they haven't touched it yet. The temperature, it's about 75 degrees, 72 degrees probably. The wind is blowing quite strongly. There's going to be a storm coming in tonight and tomorrow. Kami's calling for me because he can't see me. I'm over here, Kami. He wanted to move the cows with me today. So we had 2 newborn lambs. I put a video of that, a short video up. Looks like Mama's okay, and looks like this one might actually be the first proper birth with the 2 new lambs. And was supposed to move the sheep last night to a new row, but I didn't, so I'm going to go correct that right now. Set up a new row, move the sheep, and probably get a video of that too. But let's go through the old section here. I wanted to talk a little bit about what to do about weeds. Greg Judy did a video 3 years ago. I'm just looking at manure right now, trying to find any. Such a big area. I'm trying to block the wind, that's why you see my glove. Greg Judy did a video a while ago. A little watery. It's okay. Yeah, watery, but it's getting thicker, like pudding. Anyway, so the question Greg Judy had, or he was answering, was what do you do with a piece of ground where the grass isn't growing? That it's been row crop for years, all the nutrition in the soil is dead, there's no life there. Anything that did grow grew because of chemicals, right? And so the problem you run into with that, and I don't have that problem, so I can't really speak to that, but I have a similar problem. But the problem you run into that is the weeds grow first, right? And so you have bare soil. What's going to happen is you're going to get weeds, and the cows don't want to eat those weeds. And in between the weeds, you might get a little bit of grass, right? And so you might look at that area and say, oh, let's go send the cows out. I'll have the cows eat the weeds. And that's what Greg Judy did. And what he found happened is that the cows ate the grass, they killed the grass, and then they started eating the weeds. Okay, so my point is this, with weeds, is you do not anticipate that the cows will eat the weeds first. You always measure the grass, and that's what you're rotationally grazing for, is you want them to get in there and munch on that grass, take a bite and move on, right? That's the best possible solution. Now the weeds, they're going to stick around and do the thing that they do. Another technique, his friend from South Africa explained this to him, is just pretend like that pasture isn't there. Don't put the cows out there in the spring. Let the weeds do their thing. Let them take over and grow for a while. Okay, let the ground heal, and then when you get long grass, put the cows in, munch on the grass, and move, right? So you just kind of ignore the weeds. Something else Greg Judy does that I don't really do is he does, he calls it, he's basically mowing the weeds down, or mulching, or I think, what do they call it down here? They call it, oh, I can't remember the name for it. Shredding, right? And he has a tool that he likes to use. And he can't get to all the places on his farms because it's not flat. There's a lot of hills and a lot of steep hills, right? But the shredding of the weeds may have a positive effect. If you have just weeds and no grass, or very little grass, then give it a try, see what happens. Shred the weeds, return those nutrients back into the soil, and let the grass get a chance to get it on the next go, right? What I expect to see in my pasture here, if you've been watching my videos, you know that in the western part of these rows, the grass was quite short. And on the eastern part where we're at now, the grass is quite tall, right? The polar opposites of each other, right? And I've been grazing mathematically. By the way, I'm standing on the line here, so you can see like the left is what they had yesterday, and this is what they're having this morning. What I expect to see from my experience, which isn't very much, is that western portion is not going to grow back. I'm going to come back here in June 1st and that grass is going to be 6 inches tall, right? Whereas this area, when I come back here and graze again with the cows in about 6 weeks, I'm guessing that's about June 1st, this grass is going to be up to my armpits, right? Now, what do I do about it? How do I get the grass in the western part of my field to grow? The answer is leave it alone. So I'm going to set apart the western side of my field, all of that part that isn't growing very well, and just kind of fence it off and just not graze it. Let the spring grasses do what they do. And then I should come back next year, or maybe in the autumn or springtime, or summertime, and see massive amounts of grass, right? And that's kind of what I anticipate seeing. So that's kind of my plan for the next graze, is just hit the areas with grass and leave everything else alone. And, you know, graze the grass down. 80% of the grass will be grazed. It'll be grazed down about 1/3, and then I'll move, right? I'll just keep moving quickly, maybe more slowly because there's more grass in certain areas, but more quickly where there's not as much grass, you know. All right, this is my neighbor's back 20. This is the southern, I'd say the southern 2/3 of it. You can see some of the colors from some of the Indian paintbrush. You can see a lot of grass is growing, a lot of white flowers too. I'm not sure what the white flowers are. Here's a close-up of the white flowers here. Pretty little things, but that kind of gives you a picture of what's back there. The northern third, oh, look at this. You can see the ryegrass has put seeds on. You know, look at that. It's waving there in the wind. The northern third is even taller. It's better than the southern half, right? And I credit that with the fact that the cows tend to graze up there on the north. Oh, there's these purple flowers I haven't seen yet. Those are pretty too. I wonder what those are. And when I'm looking at it with my eyes, it looked like dark purple, but on the screen it looks like a light purple. So the colors aren't quite right. But anyway. So this is what happens when you don't touch the grass for, oh gosh, I think the last time I was here was in October, right? This is 6 months of just leaving it alone, right? Part of the trick of the Greg Judy method, and if you read his books, he explains this, is setting aside some of your pasture and not touching it for long periods of time, right? He talks a lot about stockpiling. In effect, what that means is he looks at his grazable acreage and he cuts some of that grazable acreage out of his rotation plan. And he says, I'm not going to graze that for 3 months, for 6 months, maybe for 9 months if it's a drought, right? And the reason why he gets away with that is because his stocking density is a lot lower than his stocking capacity, right? And he explains why he does that. He says, because in years of drought, I can't run to the sale barn and sell all my cows and get any money, right? So I'd rather have consistent, sales than have to run to the barn the sale barn every couple of years when there's a drought. First signs of a drought, I have to sell all my cows. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to be in a position where droughts can happen and it doesn't affect his grazing at all, right? He just, does the same thing he's always done. But I think another reason why he does that is because he is developing a lot of the land and he doesn't count it as grazable acreage until 4 or 5 years after he started grazing on it, right? So he knows that he can get the land to a point where it can consistently produce tons of grass, as long as he doesn't overgraze, right? And he wants to get to that point, but a lot of his acreage isn't at that point. And so he looks at it and he says, that is acreage under development. Maybe it could support, 1 cow for every 4 acres or something like that. 1 cow calf pair. And that's probably what he's doing. I can't speak for the man, but that's what I think he's doing. Is he understocks and he undergrazes, and he uses the cows like a tool where parts of the ground that aren't growing very well, where there's a little bit of grass, he puts the cows on there, very quickly takes them off to just kind of give the grass a head start, And I know for a fact that he'll occasionally put down lime or phosphorus to kind of get the whole process started. And I've seen him in videos put down some red clover. He bought a hay field from somebody, and I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. and he drove around and just broadcast red clover seeds, and then he had the cows come in and graze quickly and then leave, right? And the idea was that, you know, you can't just buy a piece of land or lease a piece of land and immediately start grazing on it. It takes a while for the grass to develop, you know. So understocking, that's probably the advice. If I can go back in time and tell myself and say, hey, myself from 2021, I would say don't get, like here on the 60 acres plus the back 20, probably start with 20 cows, maybe 10, you know. Start very light, you know, and then gradually ramp up as you have more and more acreage, you know, that you can graze, you know. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.